in France, really, with François Hollande's speech yesterday, trying to reignite his presidency, going on the offensive on the domestic front, and there's been world papers reacting to that.
Yeah, a lot of reaction. This isn't something that's gone unnoticed, particularly in the German press. Going to kick off with the Frankfurter Allgemeine ZEITUNG. This is a centre-right daily, and they're particularly picking up on comments, obviously, being as it's a German newspaper, on Germany in François Hollande's speech yesterday, not surprising. Their headline, "Wake Up, Grandpa." Now, this is in reference to a recent fly-on-the-wall documentary that was made of the first 8 months of François Hollande's time in the Élysée Palace, and they say that well, they're rather harsh actually. They say that this sort of portrayed him as a rather sluggish old grandpa, kind of rather recalcitrant, not really working through his first year in office with much urgency. But they say Thursday's press conference is really he's really sort of flipped that around, but according to them, too aggressively with regards to his comments on Germany. They say he was sort of overzealous to try and shake off this grandpa image. And in fact, what he's done is sort of create divides where perhaps there aren't any with regards to his relationship with the German Chancellor, and with regards to sort of the divergence in policies between the French and the German approach to attacking the Eurozone debt crisis. But quite interesting then to look at the Handelsblatt, which is a German business daily, and they're sort of saying, calm down that rhetoric. In fact, the French president perhaps wasn't as critical as the Frankfurter Allgemeine might have liked to suggest. They say not only did François Hollande himself say that the Franco-German relationship was really indispensable for European success, but they say that German Chancellor Angela Merkel herself said that just because we have differences in some approach doesn't mean this is necessarily a bilateral crisis. Their headline there saying that the Merkel is stressing a good relationship with the French president. Now, it's not the only country's newspapers having a look at what François Hollande said yesterday. The British paper, the Telegraph, also gave their 3 pennies worth. They've pulled out every single reference that François Hollande said about Britain, and they've distilled it into this piece, which they've called that it was a 3-pronged attack on British interests, saying that they've pointed out that François Hollande said the UK is not needed in Europe. They say that he attacked the UK's austerity measures, and says that the British Prime Minister is risking sort of splintering the European Union. Now, the backdrop for this is MPs in Britain perhaps sort of pushing for an EU referendum sooner rather than later. So you could ask, is an article like this adding a little bit more fuel to that fire?
Europe's leaders getting on as well as ever, I see. Turkey and the US on Syria next.
Yeah, this is an interesting piece in the International Herald Tribune. It's an editorial by Daniel Niesman. Now, he's a political analyst, and he's looking at what he calls Assad's spillover strategy. Now, this is off the back of recent violence in border towns in Turkey alongside the border with Syria. Now, he says on paper, this sort of cross-border violence might seem to immediately invite a reaction from Turkey in terms of encouraging perhaps intervention to come sooner from Turkey. But he says actually this is a very clever strategy, although it might be slightly unwitting by the Syrian government, that the threat of how things could escalate might actually dissuade neighbouring countries from upping intervention. He says what's happening is Turkish people in Turkey are protesting, saying we don't want our government to get any more further involved. Look at what's happening already in the border towns. We don't want this violence to spread. So you could then ask, is this a strategy that's really working? Well, if you look at a little cartoon in the Gulf News, this is United Arab Emirates online website. It's a cartoon which sort of shows quite the extent, drawing Turkey into the Syria's quagmire, a clear indication that they don't want Turkey to sort of get any more drawn in to the Syrian conflict than it already is.
And finally, David Beckham retiring.
Oh, yes, we can't end without a quick word on Beckham. The UK newspapers competing for best pun.
I imagine he's got a fair amount of coverage over there.
Yeah, absolutely. Front page of the Times here. End it like Beckham. It's made the front page of the Daily Telegraph too. The Guardian newspaper, they call Dosh and Becks. They look at sort of the financial breakdown of Beckham's time as in his 20-year career. The LA Times, however, remind us it's not just the money. Here are some of his best bits. They've got on their website a video which you can see playing behind me, showing the best bits, best free kicks in his long spanning career.
Katerina VITTOZZI, thanks very much for that roundup of the international press. Do so with us coming up. The French president offers his prescription for the country's economic woes. Matthew Warren will have details.